So
Yeah, I think it works, but you don't just.
yeah, I don't hear myself except if I do
This
this
is very disturbing.
very much.
I
I
was nearly
just get
calling you to get
confused.
fixed.
Good afternoon.
And no one had the headphones on? One more person.
But I cannot hear. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? But I cannot hear from this one. Good afternoon. No, I don't hear myself.
I can hear you.
But I don't know if I'll hear others.
I hear you on the microphone.
Okay, you do? Hello? I
No?
still don't hear myself. I think I'm supposed to hear myself,
okay.
right?
Yeah. Just a minute.
Maybe you can try it.
And it works.
It works. Usually I hear myself when I speak in the mic when I put the headphones, but
Yeah, I guess it's maybe your headphone that doesn't work.
maybe.
So
It's okay.
just
It's okay. So good afternoon for to everyone. I'm just waiting. Can you hear me? I'm just waiting for a few minutes because people are grabbing coffee and tea. So maybe we should wait for a few minutes and we might have more participants.
And these, does that also work? Is there connected directly?
I don't know. I disconnected it. I wasn't sure what to do. Maybe they work. Should I use this one maybe? So good afternoon. Yeah, now I can hear myself. Thank you.
So we can just use this one.
Thank you very
yeah,
much. Thank you.
So I don't
Excuse me, do you have a remote mic?
Yeah, I think I
Because we'll need it quite often. So if you can leave it with one of our colleagues from, yes, please. Thank you. No, we'll just when we'll start. Thank you. Working now? Working? Have to tell. Can you hear me? No, they can adjust. You have to adjust. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we will need to start now our session. Can you hear?
but I don't know if I'm supposed to.
Are we having some technical problems? 2 minutes? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll need to wait for 2 minutes because we have some technical problems.
Раз, 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 раз. 1, 2, 3.
Can you hear me? Is it okay? 1 more minute? I think we might need to start even if remote participation is not working very well. My apology for this delay, but it seems that we had some technical problems. So again, for the third time, good afternoon and welcome to this meeting. This session actually is about the dynamic coalition on the internet and climate change. So this is the 5th meeting of the Dynamic Coalition on Internet and Climate Change, and I would like to welcome you all to this session. My name is Nevin Taufi. I come from the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. Actually, I'll be moderating this session on behalf of the ITU because my colleague in the ITU, Cristina Boetti, could not make it. So I'm happy to be with you today. Well, our agenda today is very simple. We maybe start with some brief introductions just to know who is in the room with us, since it's an interactive session. Then I would like to make a presentation about the efforts of the International Telecommunication Union in the field of ICT and climate change. We will then have a presentation by Mrs. Verena from the OECD on the efforts of the OECD in ICT and climate change as well. Then we'd like to hear from you about how you foresee the future of this dynamic coalition, what you think we can do for the future meetings, how we can make our voice more heard at the plenary sessions maybe. So we'll have an open discussion hopefully, and I hope that you'll all engage in it. So I just want to bring your attention to a flyer that you will find on the desk. Another colleague, Young Hee from the ITU, has been very kind to bring flyers about actually the history of the Dynamic Coalition, when it was created, what is the objective of the coalition, and what we aim to achieve. So please feel free, if you're not sitting on the main table, to grab a copy of this flyer, okay? And just to go very briefly about what the Dynamic Coalition is doing, it's aware of the potential that ICT can play in tackling climate change, and that's why the ITU launched the Dynamic Coalition on Internet and Climate Change in 2007 as an open body committed to moderating the environmental impact of the ICT and seeking new ways to empower the power of ICTs for reducing green gas emissions. What we're trying to do as a group actually is to share information, to promote the importance of the issue, to consider key issues concerning the relationship between the internet and climate change, identify potential areas for collaboration, identify gaps, identify possibilities for partnerships, and liaise with governments, organizations in the United Nations system working on this topic. So just briefly what this group is trying to do. If you turn to the second page, you'll find a very nice list of all the entities that have committed to being members to the dynamic coalitions, and maybe today we'll have more entities that are interested in joining. So we have from governments to NGOs to private sector, of course, to academia. All these entities are very much interested in ICT and climate change. So can I ask you for a brief tour de table, just introducing ourselves so that we know who is attending our session, and this would really make our interactions easier. Can we start from Giacomo? I just need the mobile phone to circulate, just brief introductions.
Thank you. Is working? Okay. I'm from the European Broadcasting Union. We participate to the work within the ITU for greening ICT industry, and we have agreed on the final document, and now we are in the phase to implementing it within our members.
Hi, Giacomo. Hello, everyone. I'm Chong-hee Kim from International Telecommunication Union, ITU. I'm sitting here representing ITU, but actually more or less helping our kind lady, our chairman, Naveen. Thank you, Naveen, to taking into account all this issue of ITU activities and climate change. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Taylor Reynolds. I work at the OECD, and I'm head of the Information Economy Unit, and our unit does quite a bit of work in Green ICTs.
Hello, my name is Etienne Tishimbi. I come from Senegal.
Hi, my name is Anju and I come from Fiji and I represent the Secretariat of the Pacific Community.
My name is Helen Goodman. I'm a member of Parliament in Great Britain. I see that the UK government is a member. I think the UK government must have joined when we, the Labour Party, were in power, so I'm pleased to be here, even though we lost the election.
My name is Floris Pas. I'm a student of the Dutch IGF delegation.
Hi, my name is Ruth Hennell. I'm here with the Web of Tomorrow is Yours European Youth Forum group, and I campaign on climate change with social media, and I'm involved in UK online climate change campaigns, so I'm interested to hear how internet interacts with climate change.
Welcome.
Hi everybody, my name is Min Kao. I'm working for SPC on GIZ. I'm currently based in Fiji and Pacific. I was in charge for GIZ for mounting climate change portals on a climate change information sharing platform for the Pacific, for Tonga, Fiji and Vanuatu, and for the region.
I'm Oras Tynkkynen, a member of the National Parliament in Finland, and I actually have my background in the climate community. If I counted right, I've participated in 11 conferences of the parties since the Kyoto conference, and I'm planning to continue to Qatar this year. So I'm a lot more knowledgeable about climate than anything most of the sessions here have been dealing with.
Welcome. The ladies?
Hi, my name is Zarifa Jabrailova. I am from Baku, Azerbaijan, Institute Information Technology, Académie Nationale Azerbaijan Science. Please.
Hello, my name is Sadat Abdullayeva. I am from Baku, Azerbaijan. Institute Information Technology.
Welcome to you.
My name is Junsel. I am from Azerbaijan, Institute Information Technology.
My name is Rosa. I am from Azerbaijan, Institute Information Technology.
Welcome, Rosa.
My name is Leila, Institute Information Technology. I am from Baku. My name is Aybeniz Aliyeva, Institute Information Technology.
Welcome to you.
My name is Tamila, Institute Information Technology.
Welcome to the whole group from the Technological Institute. Gentleman at the back.
Hello, my name is Ali Alofsat. I head the Offset Department of the Institute of Information Technology.
Welcome, sir.
I science. We worked information economy.
Welcome to all of you.
Thank
This is your session, so I really hope we'll have more. There is someone. I'm sorry. Anyone else who did not introduce himself? So this is really your session, and I hope we'll have more organizations from Azerbaijan joining the Dynamic Coalition and attending future meetings. So if you allow me now, I'll just move to the laptop and make the presentation on behalf of the International Telecommunication Union, that is the main organization leading the Dynamic Coalition. Okay, can you hear me from here? Okay. So this is a presentation that was presented, actually prepared by the International Telecommunication Union, ITU. Actually, I have the honor of being a member of one of the study groups of the ITU that is specialized in ICT and climate change. And what I'll be doing now is just going briefly through the activities of the ITU in this important area of work that actually unites between very important sectors, environment and ICT, the internet and the environment. So just a brief overview of what the ITU is. It's a UN agency specialized for ICTs, and its membership actually is about 193 governments with over 700 private sector members and 40 organizations or 40 academic institutions. Some of the facts that or the statistics that the ITU is gathering is about measuring the information society, and according to the ITU measuring the information society document of 2012, it has been shown that ICTs continue to be more available and affordable. By the end of 2011, 2.3 billion are using the internet, and between 2008 and 2011 prices dropped by 30%. The report has shown also that developing countries account for the lion's share of ICT growth, and the strongest drop in prices happened actually in the developing countries. We see also that the double-digit growth in mobile, cellular and fixed broadband subscriptions is in the developing countries. The internet and ICT access is increasing. Broadband and mobile today are almost twice as many. The ITU data also shows that apart from fixed subscriptions, all ICT services continue to register strong growth. By the end of 2011, 6 billion mobile cellular subscriptions, this is the number that has resulted, with 86% penetration, up from 77% a year earlier. The chart that you have in front of you shows actually that mobile broadband have shown strongest growth rate in the last 4 years, and by the end of 2011, and there are twice as many mobile as fixed broadband subscriptions. I think that the increase in mobile penetration is particularly clear in developing countries, and in a country like Egypt, this is very obvious. I think this applies in the African continent as well. We notice, however, that while mobile cellular divide is decreasing, the broadband divide is still separating the developed and the developing countries. So by the end of 2011, mobile broadband penetration reached 51% in developed countries compared to 8% in developing countries. Fixed broadband stood as 25% in developed countries compared to 4.9% in developing countries. These are some statistics from the ITU, and I think you can refer back to the different documents that the ITU has produced in this respect, and I would like from here to move to the role of the ITU with respect to the issue of climate change. According to Dr. Hamadoun Touré, the Secretary General of the ITU, the ICTs have a special nature, being a unique, cost-effective, inclusive and environmentally friendly tools to spur green growth, create jobs, promote social progress, environmental protection and sustainable future. At Rio Plus 20, the ITU hosted, I think, a workshop on this particular topic of the relationship between ICTs and climate change, and there was an effort to promote and to make known the impact, of course, the impact of ICT and climate change, and we know that the ICTs account for 2% of the carbon footprint, but that the impact, the ICTs also can play a very effective role in mitigating actually the impact of the carbon footprint in other sectors through different technologies such as sensors, smart grids, and different other tools. So this is a slide that really shows the dichotomy actually that we're having in the ICT sector. We are a cause of the problem, but with 2% actually, but at the same time that the ICT could play a role in decreasing the carbon footprint of certain sectors. So through smart buildings, smart metering, smart motor systems, smart logistical, plus dematerialization of transport, the ITU have this potential of decreasing the carbon footprint of those very detrimental sectors such as transport. Maybe through video conferencing, through online participation, instead of having people taking flights and actually generating more and more carbon footprint. This is what we call dematerialization. We could actually contribute to resolving partially the problem of climate change and the impact of climate change. So this is another slide that shows the negative part, the environmental load caused by ICT, that comes mainly from the consumption of energy, from the consumption of natural resources, and the generation of waste. All the batteries, the equipment that is actually discarded in a non-environmentally friendly manner. This is the negative impact of ICT. But on the other hand, we have also the positive side, which is the dematerialization, reduction of movement and transportation, making industry and lifestyles more efficient. And both aspects of the ICTs need to be clearly quantified. So for these reasons, because ICT has this double role, the positive, the devilish part in the climate change, and at the same time it is part of the solution, the ITU has created actually a study group specialized in ICT and climate change. This is study group 5. And it has been working now for a number of years. What the study group 5 is doing, these are some of the questions that are addressed by the group. Question 17 within study group 5 discusses how to make ICT equipment more energy efficient and climate change standards harmonization. So in study group 5, just to explain further, we have representatives from governments, from the members of sector members, of member states in the ITU. We have also representatives from the industry. So it's a very important forum where industry and governments are interacting together to find solutions or to suggest standards that would help us in decreasing the environmental load of ICTs. Question 18 of the study group 5 discusses actually methodology to assess the environmental impact of ICT. How can we say that this laptop, or how can we assess the carbon footprint of this laptop? Or how can we assess the carbon footprint of mobiles? How can we assess the carbon footprint of organizations, IT organizations? These are all dimensions that are discussed by question 18.5, and we have very active private sector members in this question. They have also came up with very important recommendations or standards in this respect. Question 19.5 is discussing power feeding systems. Question 21 discusses actually environmental protection and recycling of ICT equipment and facilities. As a person coming from Africa, from Egypt, I have to say that the issue of recycling of ICT equipment is of extreme importance for us, because Africa, unfortunately, has been known as being the dumping area of e-waste for Europe and the Americas. We hope that this will be resolved and that we reach real standards or recommendation on how to deal with that. Question 22 discusses setting up low-cost sustainable telecommunication infrastructure for rural communications in developing countries. Question 23, and this is the question I'm working on with a colleague from the UK, Mr. Dave Faulkner, It's how we can use ICT to enable countries to adapt to climate change. So as you all know, I'm sure there are two dimensions to climate change, or two actions that could be taken: mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation is lowering the carbon footprint, of course. Adaptation, very briefly, is after the disaster has happened, what can we do to adapt to the new changes that we are facing in our different societies? I don't want to go through all these recommendations of the ITU. I just would like to bring your attention that all these documents, talking about methodologies of assessment, talking about standards for recycling, they are all available for public perusal, of course, on the ITU website. So just forgive me for skipping this. I would like to give you a chance to share what you're doing as well. One of the most important recommendations that has been done at the ITU regards actually the universal power adapter and charger, and it is meant to reduce the number of power adapters and charger produced by widening their application. The recommendation has tried to put high-level requirements for universal power adapter and charger solutions, and the purpose of this is to decrease is to increase the lifespan of the power adapters and chargers, and to reduce the number of waste that is coming from these equipment that is huge in number. Again, waste management. Recycling, one of the important issues that has been also addressed by the ITU is the rare metal recycling, or the rare metal components that come from the recycling of e-waste. And also the ITU has produced a recommendation on how to report on these rare metals and how to use them. A very important recommendation from the ITU concerns the data centers. And sometimes we find ourselves in this dilemma of imagining that a data center is by definition green, which is not the case. We could have data centers where there is an aggregation, of course, of data and servers, but they are not necessarily and always green. So also the ITU has produced recommendations on how to ensure that data centers are green, how to ensure that they are located in the proper areas so they do not become consumers of energy rather than savers of energy. So I consider this particular recommendation of very high relevance to a country like Egypt, for instance. Again, these are recommendations regarding methodologies, environmental impact of ICT goods, networks, and services, of projects in cities, in countries. Okay, so this is very briefly what the ITU is doing. The ITU has been also very effective in awareness raising about all these recommendations. So they had series of events taking place in different parts of the world. In December 2012, we're going to have an event about bridging the standardization gap in Bangalore, India. Another important event, actually, that will take place in February 2013 is about smart, sustainable cities. And I think this will take place in Geneva. One of the events that took place in September 2012 and were very important, it's the ITU Green Standards Week, and this one has taken place actually in Paris, and they came up with the Paris Declaration, another important document that spells out the most important actions that we need to adopt in terms of the internet or ICT and climate change. Using submarine telecommunications cables for ocean and climate monitoring and disaster warning. This is work done by ITU in cooperation with many other organizations such as the World Meteorological Organization. a very important point that I would like to mention here is that all this work done by the ITU in the area of climate change is not done in isolation of other organizations. On the contrary, most of this work and most of the guidelines that are produced are done in cooperation with a number of international organizations that are specialized in these fields. Many guidelines have been produced about using submarine telecommunications cables for ocean and climate monitoring and disaster warning. Again, you'll find them available on the ITU site. Very interesting work also is the ITU toolkit on environmental sustainability for the ICT sector. These are different publications tackling several issues. So actually, it's an initiative to provide detailed support on how ICT companies can build sustainability in their operations and management through practical application of international standards and guidelines. The toolkit provides a set of sustainable requirements for ICT companies, allowing for objective reporting in key areas such as buildings, ICT products, end of life, KPIs, and an assessment framework for environmental impacts of ICTs, all available for the public. This is a list of actually of partners that are working in this, that have been working on this toolkit, and you can see that they cover different areas and come from different places or parts of the world, and this is what makes the toolkit particularly valuable, I think. I'm skipping that as well. Very briefly about what has been done in adaptation, I have to mention that there has been a case study of Ghana about how they can adopt adaptation strategies within their national strategies. This case study is also available online and you can consult it. Out of the case study of Ghana, there has been many lessons learned and best practices that we are trying to use in our question 23 on adaptation. Also, very importantly, what we're trying to do in question 23 is to create a portal that would have best practices on the use of ICT and adaptation to climate change. Let me please skip this part, I'm sorry, but this is another area that is very important, also disaster relief, using ICT for disaster relief. And I think that ICT here is an instrumental factor in decreasing the impact of disasters through observation and communication with people. And there is a whole department within the ITU working on this particular important topic. These are important links that you could consult to know more about what I have just presented. I don't want to take more time, so I hope I haven't been too quick in this presentation, but I would be happy to answer your questions and maybe dwell into more details about that when we open the discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you. So if you allow me now, I would like to move to Verena from OECD. Verena is an expert in the OECD. She has been also working very actively on ICT and climate change. And I would like to ask you, Verena, to come and make your presentation. Thank you.
Is it better now? Does it work? Okay, so I'll start again. So thank you very much, Naveen, for your kind introduction and for the chance to talk about a topic that we care a lot about at the OECD, which is green ICTs and climate change. So the internet has become a fundamental platform for the entire economy, but some of the most promising applications are actually applications that increase efficiency in multiple areas, so from smart buildings to smart grids, smart transportation, and smart agriculture, which is a very important area, especially for emerging and developing countries. And so we are at the point where it's important that we also get a positive business case out of these applications. So what I would like to do is to start with the OECD recommendation on ICTs in the environment. So the OECD has been working on green ICTs for a couple of years, so we have touched upon issues such as sensor networks, smart grids, how to enhance skills, and what kind of policies countries are establishing in this area. But our main output is this OECD Council recommendation that was adopted by the governing body of the OECD, with which regroups the 34 ambassadors of our member countries. And I think it's a pretty good place to start a discussion because what it's doing, it's attempting to provide a holistic view of green ICTs, and so it's grouping principles that provide a kind of a framework for enhancing the contribution of ICTs to improve environmental performance. So I'll give you 9 bullet items that summarize the principles of the recommendation. So the first principle of the recommendation suggests, and I think this is a very important one, to coordinate ICT, climate, environment, and energy policies, because in fact this is the only way to maximize all the benefits that you can get out of it, and I'll come to that back at a later stage. Second, our member countries think that it's crucial to adopt a life cycle perspective, so that we look at the production of ICTs, the usage, and also, and Naveen mentioned that, a very important point, disposal of ICTs and ICTs-enabled applications. A third main principle is to support research and innovation in green technologies and services. For instance, supporting basic research or coming up with private-public partnerships that drive this R&D in that important area. When you have like these promising applications in place, it's very important that you have the skills that go along with those. So the fourth main principle of that recommendation is to develop green ICT skills. Now, what you've also do is to involve the public, to create public awareness the role ICTs can play in mitigating climate change. So what governments could do in this area is to come up with eco-labels to show consumers, what's the energy consumption, for instance. What's the energy consumption of a smartphone? What happens if you do a Google search? I mean, what does that mean for the climate in general? Then, of course, we encourage the wide sharing of best practices. So, and the OECD is a very good place to do that because we have the several member countries, but we have also business, the internet technical community, civil society sitting at our table. And often some countries come up with very, very good solutions, and sharing best practices is just a very useful and important tool. Then governments should lead by example. So they have a key role in ensuring that their public procurement, for instance, is and done in a very effective way, so that they buy energy efficient instruments, hardware, software, etc. And then finally, Naveen also mentioned that measurement is a very important area, so we're glad that the ITU is currently also working on that field. And of course, for governments, it's important to set objectives in this area. Now, the question is, where do we stand today? So, which of these principles have already been implemented, and where do we have to do more work? So, and I've just some examples. So, in the last couple of years, we saw that our member countries came up with a bundle of national strategies that focused on transforming their economies to low carbon economies. So one very prominent example is the Korean example. Korea came up with a national strategy for Green ICTs that meant that first of all, businesses were oriented towards increasing efficiency in these organizations. They were oriented to do research and development to be able to come up with innovative solutions, to also export them, of course. And then a couple of smart cities were planned and built that combined various areas, like from smart transportation to smart buildings, etc. Other examples, we have someone from the UK, is the low carbon industrial strategy, and from Australia, the National Carbon Accounting Toolbox. So this was done a lot, and another areas where governments have done a lot of work is the promotion of smart grids. So now the question is, why are ICTs important in that area? So in fact, and this is a statistics that covers the whole world, we see that still over 2/3 of all electricity generation is from fossil fuels. So basically that means that if you can increase efficiency in the distribution, if you can increase efficiency at consumers' homes, this will directly translate into lower level of carbon emissions. So this is a very important area. And smart meters are probably one of the most important tools to increase efficiency at homes. We've seen that, especially in Europe, many different smart meters have been implemented, unfortunately not always with the same standards, so that's the challenges we're facing today. But in fact, what those smart meters allow is to introduce a vital communication channel between producers and consumers. For instance, consumers are able to see that they are actually consuming energy at peak times. So, we saw that in several countries, this has allowed to significantly lower the demand during those peak times. And what this means is that, in fact, you can avoid to have to add additional power plants to smart grids and to grids in general. And these power plants that you add normally are also based on fossil fuels, so that's a very important lever. And this is an example from the US. O-Power is a provider of data services to energy companies. And what O-Power did is that it showed consumers not only their own consumption, but also the consumption of their neighbors. And that way, they could contribute to electricity savings of 1.5% to 3.5%, simply by showing the different consumption patterns. So this was a very, very powerful tool. And it translated, from an economic perspective, it translated to 6 to 14 billion US dollars per year that could be saved by just providing more information. Now, a third area where governments have done a lot of work in the past years is through leading by example. So they work towards increasing efficiency of ICTs they use, and to thus reduce the energy consumption in the government. So, for instance, the United Federal Government has embarked on a program to reduce the number of data centers they had. So, and they went from 2,100 data centers down to 1,300 by, and they thus consolidated the data centers on the one hand, and they move lots of applications to the cloud. And this dramatically reduces their energy consumption. Other governments currently are embarking on similar projects, so we see that Denmark is currently undertaking a similar approach. Another example would be Australia. Now, I already mentioned green ICT skills and jobs. So especially in stimulus packages that were issued during the first part of the economic crisis, countries focused on green jobs for two reasons. So one, they wanted to jumpstart job creation, and second, they wanted to accelerate the transition towards green growth. For instance, Japan was actively engaged in these efforts. And the reason why this is important is because if you want to design systems with their life cycle and environmental impact in mind, this requires a slightly different way of thinking than engineers currently have. And secondly, energy consumption of ICTs is becoming more and more important, but it continues to be a challenging topic because it's currently pretty hard to estimate the long-term effects. So this thinking also has to enter into new curricular. Now, this is what countries have done during the past years, and now the question is, how should we move forward? As Niveen mentioned, you have the two sides. So on the one hand, you want to reduce the negative effects of ICTs, and on the other hand, what you would like to do is to increase the enabling effects that ICTs have in other sectors of the economy. And on the negative side, actually, we have smartphones and cloud computing. So what cloud computing allows to do is that you need that you can use more and more leaner devices at the edge. So you don't need a full computer anymore. If you have a simple handheld device, that would probably do the trick. So this is a positive development. On the other hand, the number of mobile phones, smartphones, is increasing at a very high pace. And what we haven't done so far is to resolve the question of the disposal of those phones. So I'm pretty sure that all of you have multiple old phones in their drawers somewhere that you don't use anymore. I have some of those. I won't do the test how many phones are in drawers already in this room, but that's a lot. And those phones should be recycled. As Naveen mentioned, I mean, you have very low resources in those. So why don't we think about a way that gives consumers, gives businesses the incentive to take those phones back? This is one area. And then the second area of cloud computing. So on the one hand, cloud computing allows to have leaner devices, and cloud computing often is done by having rather new and more efficient data centers, but it's not automatically green. So we have really to pay attention that the data centers that are already in use get greener, because some of them are not that recent, not that energy efficient. And there are also lots of old data centers that are still around, so we have to think, okay, what should we do with those? Then on the positive side, more smart cities should probably develop, and the important thing there is to connect the different areas. So far, many governments have only focused on smart grids or smart transportation or smart buildings, but very few, I mean, Korea is an example, but other than that, very few have tried to combine those different areas, which is very important, and which is the first principle of the recommendation, basically. So there is work that has to be done. And I would like to end with some food for thought, which is cloud versus grids. So why don't we move cloud computing closer to energy generation? So if you think, for instance, of Germany, wind is blowing in the north. The industry is in the south. So you have to get all the electricity from the north to the south. And that's the case in many countries, that the place of the energy generation is not necessarily the place where you need the energy. So you have to transport the energy in very expensive grids to get it to the offices, to get it to consumers. So for offices, we could think of why don't we put the data centers closer to energy generation? So for Germany, why don't we put the data centers to the north? And we then would need the fiber connection, but we wouldn't need the grids to, well, we would need the grids to a much lesser extent. So basically, data would travel, not energy. So that's something that could be considered. And I would like to end here. If you have more questions, you can go to our webpage, which is www.oecd.org, STI-ICD Green ICT. Or you can contact either me or my colleague Taylor Reynolds. That's also in the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Verena, for this very interesting presentation. I want to say that your OECD Council recommendations were actually for some time in Egypt, our Bible. We used the 9 points actually to guide us to create our strategy in Green ICT. So they were very extremely useful when we started the program. Also, you've mentioned several important points that are also particularly relevant, especially the cloud versus grids, and how to maximize the benefits of the location instead of actually consuming more energy, and issues related to recycling. But let me actually open the floor to your comments on both presentations, please. And also, if you have any contributions that you would like to make about your programs, national programs, or programs of different organizations. Yes? Okay, yes, sir. I think we can start with the... Do you have the mobile mic, please?
So thank you for the presentations. I could talk quite a lot about Finnish experiences. We have had a lot of work done on both ICT, smart solutions, and then of course the climate and environmental dimension. I'm just going to flag one issue. You mentioned the interesting idea of locating data centers close to low carbon energy production. I would add to that locating data centers in places that are good for energy efficient solutions, and Scandinavian countries tend to be good in that sense because the climate is cooler, so you don't need so much energy to cool the data centers. But I actually had three quite different types of points I wanted to share. First of all, as a newcomer to the whole IGF scene, what struck me, one of the things that struck me was the near total absence of environmental sustainability in the sessions during this week. I'm not fully aware of the reasons to that. I thought we lived in an era in which it would be difficult to bypass environmental sustainability at any given international conference, regardless of what the main topic was. So it's surprising for me to talk about internet governance at length for 4 full days and only have perhaps 1 or 2 sessions about environmental sustainability. So I would like to ask the people who have more experiences about this type of fora whether that's something that should be addressed in the future. My second point is that, of course, in the climate discussion, climate negotiations, in the climate community, there are various issues that are challenging and very urgent. I would just like to highlight one particular area of concern, and that is the mismatch between the current climate commitments and actions and the needed emission reductions if we are to limit global warming to a tolerable level. There have been, again, recent studies suggesting that we are on a pathway to about 6-degree warming, which is 3 times as much that we can possibly take. And when we discuss ICT in the context of climate policy, I would like to see the issue of urgency put on the table and trying to find ways to insert urgency to whenever we discuss ways to reduce the climate impact of ICT and the internet. And perhaps one possible frame or way of framing this issue might be to look at the possibilities of internet service providers to become zero carbon or carbon free in the foreseeable future. My third point is that both of you highlighted in a very good fashion the dichotomy of ICT and internet when it comes to environmental issues. It is both a major consumer of energy and a producer of greenhouse gas emissions, and one of the most promising solutions to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I would also add a third dimension. Internet is also one of the most powerful means of reaching out to billions of people. And there are various ways of doing that. I mean, internet service providers are kind enough to send me a bill every month and ask me to pay for their services. And this is a way of reaching hundreds of millions of people every month or every 2 months or whenever they decide to bill you. Or let's look at companies like Google. They reach, again, billions of people. And that's one of the most powerful possibilities of reaching out to people and telling about the challenge of climate change and possibilities to address it. So I would kind of ask and perhaps half propose that this third dimension might be of use when we discuss the internet and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these interesting remarks, actually, and I'm taking note of your first comment in particular concerning the limited number of sessions that address the issue of environmental sustainability during the IGF. I think we need to do something clearly about that in the coming IGF, and with your permission, I'll put it actually in the recommendations of this dynamic coalition. Please, sir.
Yes, can you hear me all? Okay, there are several comments I would like to make. First of all, I think when you talk about Germany, although green energy is in the north, you have the Ruhr area, I think it's called in English like that, and a lot of coal is gained there, so it's pretty close to an energy source. So yeah, I would like to add make ICT production more closely to green energy sources. Then when you divided ICT into energy, it was in the other presentation, you divided energy into, or ICT into energy, natural resource and waste. But I was missing research, which is also quite a big, well, consumer of big problem. If you talk about the environment, research is also a big problem. Although on the long term, it's very important because you can reduce. Well, I'm sorry. Sorry, like this? Oh, a bit closer. Was my second point clear, or like this?
Didn't hear the second point very well from my side.
I'm not being very clear, but my second point is research, although on the long term it's profitable, when research is conducted, it's still not very, it makes up for climate change as well. So it's a fourth point I would like to add. And although I do not like it, I think we live in a world in which economics make the decisions. So concerning the question, why do you not deliver your old phones to a telecom party or something? I think it would only help if it's financially attractive. So, and since it's not being done, I think it's not economically attractive. So I'm not quite sure how to do it. But those were my.
Thank you very much for your comments. In Egypt, we have all the people just have drawers and drawers, either mobiles or PCs or old laptops or batteries or whatever. No one is throwing anything. And it's unfortunately, it's a waste of a lot of equipment that could be used or recycled or refurbished even. And I guess this is the case in other countries as well, but we don't have enough of stimulus to take all these equipment and give them to a third party and get maybe points in for our mobiles or any kind of credit. Please, the lady from the UK.
Thank you very much. I fear that the mismatch between action and the original targets, which was raised by my colleague from Finland, can now be applied to Great Britain, because you very kindly said we had a green industrial strategy, but under our new Tory government, I'm afraid that is just crumbling. I think it is important to deal with this recycling of the mobile phones, and also because of the high level of conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is really being fueled by competition for these minerals. So I'm quite keen to campaign on that if other people want to do that in other countries. And I continue to be amazed by the number of new gadgets and devices which I buy, which have to work on standby, or where you have to make a real effort to switch it off. And I'm completely fed up with the manufacturers who say how marvelous this is and how much flexibility it is. I don't need my toaster on in the middle of the night. I don't need my radio on in the middle of the night. I don't need my television on in the middle of the night. And obviously, if we're going to do something about this, we've got to have common standards, preferably in the OECD and not just in the EU, common standards, because otherwise we will be disadvantaging some manufacturers against other manufacturers. So I just wondered what progress had been made on this common standards for energy efficient gizmos.
Thank you very much. I think there are a number of recommendations from the ITU on these common standards actually for the universal adapters or charger. It's an attempt actually to reconcile the different manufacturers to agree on common power supplies, some of the points that could minimize actually the e-waste generated. So we can maybe discuss later some of these recommendations, because such efforts have been made and they were not really easy to reach. Please, yes.
Sorry, just looking at the terms of reference, and I'm just gonna say something in relation to the Pacific country. We have been doing a lot of work in relation to climate change, because some of the Pacific regions are nearing to an end now, which is a sad case. For example, the case of Kiribati, as I mentioned in the main session, that the land has been bought in Fiji. Can you hear me? Yeah, it's okay? Should I repeat or no? That's fine. For example, in the case of Kiribati, land has been bought in Fiji to relocate some of these people from Kiribati to Fiji. And this may be one of the solutions, but again, the loss of the identity in relation to them moving from their real home. Of course, that these discussions have been going on, but in relation to ICT and internet governance, we've had discussions on e-waste in the Pacific that was highlighted, but there is a lack of there's not enough being addressed in regional policies and relating to e-waste. And for example, in Cook Islands, it showed how expensive it is to dispose of potentially toxic waste from island nations, and that there is a need to basically stem the flow of obsolete technology in the Pacific. My concern is that we have a dynamic coalition, but I know that there's a lot to be done. But I would like to see how we can use some of the key solutions to tackle some of the issues related, for example, to e-waste, reducing carbon footprints, etc., and also to identify partnerships, as it says here, to reduce the impact of climate change of ICT and internet. For example, like my colleague will talk more about the climate change portals that are used in relation to the adaptation strategies. But this is some things that we are doing in relation to ICTs. But if we need to make a real stand in IGF, I guess we need to have a real case studies and also some of the research work assessment in these countries, because I think the impact will be on these countries in relation to ICTs.
So thank you very much. So you're recommending actually to present more of case studies during the dynamic coalition meetings or something of the sort? Just to clarify.
Yeah, I guess in relation to some of the real case studies, for example, I know that the Green ICTs are being used in Korea. Was it mentioned? Yeah, but more because it's already affecting the Pacific countries. So I think you will get a lot of case studies from there and some sort of assessment, like an impact assessment or adaptation assessment or something.
Shall we go to your colleague? Yeah. And then we'll take some remote participants.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Just try to give you a brief resume of what was done in the Pacific for the three countries, for Tonga, for Fiji, and Vanuatu. I think it's a good case. I was involved in this program it was a 2 years program for making an adaptation strategy for climate change for these few countries. And GIZ and SPC were helping these countries for making up a national strategy for this. And I came after for implementing a sharing platform for informational climate change things. And when you go into this country, you see that this region has very few people. The continent is huge. It's when you look at Oceania, it's really huge. They are really first concern of this, and many climate change projects aren't run on this region because it's of course affordable on a good laboratory for climate change adaptation tests and projects. Yeah, it's a reality. You have duplication of projects from outside, from America, from Europe, from everywhere. One of the goals of the project was to avoiding this duplication and waste of projects going on in the Pacific. I was in a situation in Tonga, for example, where I had concourse with other projects who wasn't running there. So I don't want to make a bad feeling in this in this here, but when I see the problems of this region, of the West developed region here, you have good problems. You have to think about smart solution for consuming less. But the other side, they are mostly not responsible of our situation, and they have just have to find smart solution for adaptation. Really, the case of Kiribati, of Tuvalu, Nauru, these guys in a few years they have to move on from their countries, go to Australia or New Zealand, or buying land in other countries, and all this solution for less consumption, etc., doesn't concern them anymore. It's just one of the points. Thank you. And just for assessing that, I was also surprised that all these climate change issues were really not really present in all this IGF. It's my first IGF, and I was very surprised about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's a common feeling, I guess, that really this issue of climate change or sustainability issues with the internet did not have a chair in the plenary sessions, or was not put clearly on the agenda, and we really need to consider what should be done about that seriously. We have other people who would like to share experiences, or should we take some remote participants? Can
So, question from Côte d'Ivoire. In 2007, ITU launched at a forum on the Internet and Dynamic Coalition Climate Change. Methods were examined to moderate the environmental impact of the Internet and its use to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases in the world. Can you give us an overview, please?
I'm not sure if I captured the whole question. The question says that there was something, an initiative launched by ITU in 2007
Yep.
about using ICT to reduce.
Just a minute. To reduce emissions of greenhouse gases in the world.
Okay. I think what is meant is the dynamic coalition itself, the group itself. Yeah. But what happened in the ITU effectively is the creation of the study group 5 to work on the different dimensions of climate change and ICT. So the different questions addressed by study group 5 are indeed the efforts that the ITU is doing to address this question, and they are translated into standards or what is called recommendations. And the special division that works on that in the ITU is the ITU-T, the ITU Telecommunication Division, I think. Okay. Other questions from remote participants?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, can I ask you more suggestions actually to make this issue of sustainability more clear on the IGF agenda? What are some of your, we need some creative ideas actually, because the problem with dynamic coalitions, and I'm member of another dynamic coalition, that sometimes we meet from year to year and that's it. And the other issue is that the plenary is working in a direction and the workshops are moving in a different direction. So yes, UK, please.
Well, I mean, it's very obvious that the people sitting in this meeting are all people who are committed to green issues. So it's really important to get into the plenary, because that's where all the business people are.
How can we get to the plenary?
Because otherwise they're not under any pressure. So that we must challenge them, and they must, be forced to confront the problem.
Taylor?
Thank you. Taylor Reynolds from OECD. My question then would be if maybe as members of the government that you can actually help us effectively lobby your own governments that are represented here to make. Okay. So what we need to probably do is find a way that we can get this on the agenda and have people talking about this. I really like the idea of having this come up in every session, because we talk about gender, we talk about lots of different issues that have become a priority and bubbled up via the process, but it seems like Green ICTs just is not there yet.
Yes, Giacomo, please.
No, I'm sorry to say that in reality the topic was in the agenda of the plenary session. For instance, in the first day there was near 1 hour discussion about emergency in the emerging issues. There was a session that lasted 1 hour at the very beginning of the plenary about communication in emergency situation, and some of these emergency situations were related to the climate change, because one example was the tsunami in Indonesia, etc., etc. So the topics are there. What we need to do probably is to be more attentive when the agenda is set up of the IGF, to be ready to put the right input. For instance, there is at the moment a problem in terms of procedure, because the IGF has created this idea of a feeding workshop, but the same possibility doesn't exist at the moment, or is not structured for a dynamic coalition to contribute to the plenaries. If we simply claim that, simply for me is something that has been forgot, but if we say that even the dynamic coalition could feed into a session, this at least could bring the items that we are discussing here into the plenary. And of course, as you said, this is a transversal issue because it touches the emerging issues. For sure, this is an emerging issue. It touches the sustainability that is part of the access. So this is a very transversal topic. Simply, we need to be more reflective when this kind of discussion about the structure of the program of the IGF is going on.
Thank you for this clarification. I also suspected that this could be included in the emerging issues session. But how was it discussed? Because I was probably attending something else as well. Was it discussed from the disaster relief dimension only, not from the sustainability dimension?
Well, not because the angle was that, but many of the discussions that were made were exactly about sustainability, because the emergency communication is one part, but is the top of the iceberg. So there is all the rest before. That is prevention. There is training for population how to react to this. So that all effects that brings naturally to the discussion about climate change. I was invited the last moment to intervene, and I raised a very simple question to the panelists that were invited to discuss about the emergency issues, saying, but are you aware of the ITU work on the emergency communication for disaster recovery, and of the UNESCO action for prevention and early warning? And they were not aware. There was one panelist from Google and another one from NGO from Indonesia, and they see the thing only from the perspective of the internet, and they don't put in relation with the rest. So what I think that is useful to do is simply to create bridges between different experience and remember people that what are they doing, others are doing. Simply sometimes what is missing a link between a part of the problem and another part and perspective of the problem. This is the long-term perspective that we are considering here, but it rises till the point where there are crises that need to be tackled in a way or another, or structural problems that need to be discussed.
Thank you for these clarifications. They are very important. I think we need to tap into the program quite early and maybe get in touch. As a government, I will try to get in touch with the people who are involved in setting the program from the Egyptian side and ask them clearly, for instance, to introduce the sustainable development the goals actually as a main issue. Maybe Finland can do that, maybe the UK can try to do that, maybe other African countries can do the same, or Asia Pacific, because if this request is coming from different administrations, then it's easier for us to get something done. So I would like to encourage all administration governments present here to try to do that and include an item on climate change in the plenary sessions. Please, Asia Pacific.
We did raise the awareness under the small island states, and we brought up the issues in relation to e-waste and other issues on climate change and sustainable development. And it was taken forward as a feeder workshop to the main session. But I'm not sure what's going to happen afterwards. But another thing is, I guess, like you said, that we need to just to also mention that I'm also part of the MEG team now. Yeah, so it could also help in.
So we count on you to push for this.
Yeah, so we could also help in relation to, because a lot of them are trying to come up with the different workshops, and I know I'm not supposed to interfere, and I'm supposed to, but because we had already raised this under the SIDS session, but again, of course, the other regions are also included, then I think it could be one of the main plenary sessions.
This is a very constructive idea.
But again, to propose, I understand what we are trying to do is, when we have panel people discussing these issues, we really want real case studies, and like I said, the assessment that needs to be done before coming and talking about it and finding ways to see if we can combat these sort of issues.
I think if you get in touch with Christina, who is actually coordinating the dynamic coalition, she'll be very happy to provide you with whatever material is needed to make a case at the MAG meetings. Yong-hee, you had a comment?
Just one for more information about ITU activities. Actually, we are in fact a month away from the Wicked 12, the international the World Conference on the International Telecommunications, which runs from 3rd to 14th in December in Dubai. The Wicked 12 with the review the international telecommunication regulations, which date back to 1988 for next decade. Simply say, the Wicked is about putting ICT in the all hands in the all around the world. They will discuss about continued development of broadband, which is issued including energy efficiency and climate change, combating climate change as well. That we have already received a proposal regarding combating climate change, and I would very encourage you to have interest and have a look at our website regarding Wicked 12 and get more information. And then I will be more than happy to provide more information in detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this clarification, and I hope that in the Wicked there will be some additions concerning ICT and climate change. I think we're also very close to the WITSA conference also, and we have proposed actually an amendment to resolution 73 regarding ICT and the environment, which we hope will be adopted with its new form during the WITSA, the World Telecommunication Standardization Assembly. Thank you. Other suggestions? Do we have any remote participants who want to comment? So if we have no more feedback, I would like to thank you very much. Thank you, Verona, for your contribution. Thank you very much. It was maybe a small meeting, but we had a lot of interesting discussions, and we really hope to keep in touch between actually Baku and maybe I think it's Indonesia next year. And we'll try to take your recommendations concerning better effectiveness of the dynamic coalition into account in our report. Thank you very much for your participation.